You know what it feels like to wake up and immediately want to be someone else. Before your feet touch the floor, before you've opened your eyes fully, there's already a voice waiting. It knows every mistake you've made, every person you've hurt, every version of yourself you promised you'd become but never did. The voice doesn't shout, it whispers. You're going to ruin this too. Not as a warning, as a fact. You reach for something, your phone, a drink, a distraction, anything, because the alternative is sitting with yourself, and that feels unbearable. There's a gap between who you are and who you wish you were, and that gap is where you live, performing one version on the outside, collapsing into another when no one's watching. You've built something. Maybe you're successful. Maybe people admire you. Maybe you've achieved the very things you once thought would make you whole. But here's what no one tells you. You can become everything the world wanted you to be and still have no idea who you actually are. BoJack Horseman is a washed-up sitcom star, a horse in a world of humans and animals, famous for playing a loving TV dad in the 90s. But the show isn't really about Hollywood. It's about the architecture of self-destruction. It's about what happens when childhood teaches you that love is conditional, and adulthood becomes an endless attempt to earn what should have been free. BoJack embodies something you recognize, even if you've never been famous, even if your pain looks nothing like his. He represents the wound that hides behind achievement, the performing self that gets applause while the hidden self slowly dies of neglect. He's the perfect mirror for a specific kind of suffering, the kind where you succeed and still feel empty, where you're surrounded by people and still feel alone, where you keep trying to outrun yourself, but everywhere you go, there you are. This is a story about disorganized attachment, about identity fragmentation, about the repetition compulsion that makes you destroy the very things you want most. But more than that, it's about you, because you carry some version of this too, maybe quietly, maybe in ways you've never named. Maybe you perform confidence while feeling like a fraud. Maybe you sabotage intimacy right when it gets real. Maybe you reach for numbing agents, work, substances, endless scrolling, because being present with yourself feels like standing in a room that's on fire. You don't have to be BoJack to understand what it means to be haunted by a version of yourself you can't seem to become. Imagine this. You're standing at the edge of connection. Someone is offering you real love, uncomplicated, genuine, freely given. And instead of relief, you feel terror, because love to you has always come with conditions. It's been withheld, weaponized, wrapped in pain. So when someone offers it cleanly, your nervous system doesn't recognize it. It feels like a trap. You want to move closer, but your body remembers. Every time you reached for love as a child, you got hurt. So now, you push people away before they can leave you. You sabotage to prove what you've always believed, that you're unlovable. And each time you do this, you confirm the wound. This is disorganized attachment. Your caregiver was supposed to be your source of safety, but they were also your source of fear. You learned that the people who are supposed to love you will hurt you most. So you developed no coherent strategy. You crave intimacy with a desperation that frightens even you, but when it's offered, you don't trust it. BoJack's mother was emotionally frozen, verbally cruel. His father projected his bitterness and failure onto a child who just wanted to be seen. BoJack learned early, love is scarce, conditional, and dangerous. You might not have had his childhood, but you know the feeling, the hunger that cannot be fed, the loneliness that doesn't leave even when someone is lying next to you, the way you reach for connection and recoil from it in the same breath. There's another pattern here, quieter but just as devastating. You've built an identity around what you do, not who you are. Maybe you're the funny one, the successful one, the one who has it all together. People praise this version of you, they rely on it, and somewhere along the way you forgot there was supposed to be someone underneath the performance. BoJack became famous for playing a sitcom dad, warm, wise, loving, everything he never had, everything he never learned to be. The character felt more real than the man. When the cameras stopped rolling, he was unmoored. Fame gave him a role to play, but never taught him who to be in the silence. You know this fragmentation if you've ever been loved for something that required you to betray yourself. If you're praised for your productivity, but never for your presence. If you're the person everyone comes to for help, but no one asks how you're really doing, you perform competence, confidence, likability. But privately, you wonder, if they knew the thoughts I have at 3 a.m., would they still love me? If I stopped being useful, would anyone stay? The performing self gets all the applause. The hidden self gets none of the love, and the gap between them grows wider. Until you're not sure there's anyone underneath the masks anymore. Until who am I becomes the question you're most afraid to answer. Here's the pattern you can't seem to break. You keep recreating your original wound. You choose partners who are emotionally unavailable. You blow up opportunities right before success. You pick fights when things are going well. And you hate yourself for it, but you can't stop. This is repetition compulsion. Your nervous system is trying to master the trauma by recreating it. You return to the scene of the crime, hoping that this time, if you just try hard enough, love will finally feel the way it was supposed to. BoJack pursues younger women who mirror his own unmet needs. He becomes the neglectful parent to others that his parents were to him. He drinks, ruins friendships, destroys intimacy, then spirals deeper into shame, which drives him to drink more. Trauma encodes itself in implicit memory. Your body remembers what your mind tries to forget. And because chaos was your baseline, stability feels dangerous. Self-destruction feels like home. You're not trying to suffer, but suffering is familiar. Your nervous system recognizes it. Peace feels like the anomaly, so you create chaos to return to what you know. And the cruelest part? Each time you do this, you prove to yourself that you were right all along. That you ruin everything, that you don't deserve good things. That the people who leave you are just seeing clearly. There's a voice in your head that sounds like someone who was supposed to love you. It speaks with contempt. It tells you, of course you failed. You always do. Why would anyone love you? You're too much. You're not enough. You're the problem. This is toxic shame, not guilt. Guilt says you did something bad. Shame says you are bad. Fundamentally, at your core, BoJack carries his mother's voice inside him, a relentless critic that tells him he ruins everything he touches. Children internalize the harsh parent. That voice becomes the superego, the part of you that punishes you more cruelly than anyone else ever could. You know this voice. It doesn't motivate you, it paralyzes you. It doesn't protect you, it isolates you. You achieve incredible things, and the voice whispers that you don't deserve any of it, that you fooled everyone, that it's only a matter of time before they see through you. Shame makes you believe that if people really knew you, they'd leave. So you hide, you perform. You stay surface level in relationships, never letting anyone close enough to see the real that because you're convinced the real you is unlovable. And the tragedy is this, the version of you that you're hiding might be the only version worth knowing. But shame has convinced you it's the version that must stay buried. You reach for something when the pain rises. Maybe it's alcohol, maybe it's work, social media, shopping, sex, busyness, anything to make the feeling stop. And it works. Briefly, the substance numbs. The distraction distracts. For a moment you feel lighter, almost like a person who deserves to take up space. But the pain always returns, louder. And now you've taught your nervous system that feelings are dangerous, that you can't handle them alone. BoJack drinks to numb his childhood, the emptiness of fame, the shame of his choices. Alcohol becomes a buffer between him and himself. Trauma survivors often have dysregulated nervous systems. They feel too much or too little, with no middle ground. Substances offer temporary regulation. The addiction isn't about the substance. It's about the unbearable experience of being yourself. You know this pattern if you've ever felt something painful rise in your chest and immediately reached for escape. If being alone with your thoughts feels dangerous. If stillness makes your skin crawl, you're not weak. You're not broken. You're just trying to survive feelings you were never taught to hold. Feelings that, as a child, you needed someone to help you regulate, but no one did. So you found other ways. Ways that worked until they didn't. And here's the deepest wound of all. You can be surrounded by people and still feel utterly alone. BoJack was famous, recognized everywhere, loved by millions. But they loved a character, not the man. They loved a version of him that never existed. This is the fame paradox. Mass visibility without genuine intimacy. You're seen everywhere. You're known nowhere. But you don't need to be famous to understand this loneliness. You've felt it if you've ever been praised for something that required you to betray yourself. If you've been loved for your usefulness, your beauty, your achievements, but not for your messy, uncertain, needy humanity. You wonder, if I stopped being successful, funny, attractive, productive, would anyone stay? Or would I discover that I was only ever loved for what I could give? There's a deeper loneliness too, an existential one. The recognition that at the most fundamental level, you are alone in your subjective experience. No one can truly feel what you feel. No one can live your life for you. You are ultimately alone. This isn't the loneliness of lacking company. It's the loneliness of existence itself, the unbridgeable gap between your inner world and everyone else's. You can share yourself, you can be witnessed, but you can never be known the way you know yourself. And that is both terrifying and, paradoxically, the beginning of real freedom. BoJack embodies an ancient archetype, the wounded king, the Fisher King, a ruler who is powerful, visible, revered, but privately suffering from an unhealable wound. And his wound curses the entire kingdom. Nothing grows, nothing thrives. The Fisher King's wound could only be healed by someone asking the right question: what ails thee? BoJack's journey, and maybe yours, is about learning to ask yourself that question. Not to fix yourself, not to become someone else, but to finally, honestly, sit with the answer. We live in a culture that worships external success while ignoring internal collapse. We're taught that achievement will save us, that if we just work hard enough, become successful enough, loved enough, we'll finally feel whole. But BoJack represents the dark truth. You can achieve everything and still feel like nothing, because the wound isn't about what you lack externally, it's about what was missing internally, developmentally, relationally, and no amount of applause can fill that void. The question isn't, what do I need to achieve? The question is, who am I when no one is watching? Who am I when I have nothing left to prove? And here's the paradox: you can't escape. You cannot run from yourself, but you also cannot hate yourself into healing. Maybe you've spent years trying to become someone different, someone better, someone worthy. And maybe in quiet moments you wonder if there's anyone real underneath all the damage. Maybe you are just the sum of your wounds. Maybe there's no real you to recover. Or maybe, and this is the gentler truth, maybe the work isn't to become someone else. Maybe it's to learn to be with the person you've always been. The child who was hurt, the adult who's trying, the part of you that sabotages and the part that keeps showing up anyway. Healing doesn't mean you'll stop making mistakes. It doesn't mean the voice of shame will disappear. It doesn't mean you'll suddenly feel lovable, worthy, enough. Healing means you learn to stay with yourself, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. BoJack's story doesn't offer redemption. It offers something more honest, the recognition that change is possible, but it's daily, unglamorous, and uncertain. Recovery isn't a moment, it's a practice. Every day you wake up and choose to numb or to feel, to run or to stay, to believe the harsh voice or to question it gently one more time. It gets easier. Every day it gets a little easier, but you have to do it every day. And that's the hard part. You're not BoJack, but you recognize something in him. And that recognition, that moment when you see your own pain reflected in someone else's story, that's not weakness. That's the beginning of compassion for him and finally for yourself.